We saw Kansas come from behind at halftime and beat Miami by 26 points. And that is where we're going to start. Jeff, you were in Chicago for the Midwest Regional. You saw Kansas up close and personal. You saw what they did in the second half. Talk to me about that performance and talk to me about what you think of the Jayhawks.
I mean, listen, they were dominant in the second half. I mean, first half, Cam McGusty got it going. Kansas trails going in. Can't stop McGusty. Can't really score. Remy's kind of not even, out there much. And then all of a sudden, whatever Bill Self said, and I'm sure it was a ton of profanities at halftime, they came out. I mean, think about it. He said to me, he was like, I said to him after, I'm like, what'd you say? He's like, yeah, I kind of got after him a little bit. I'm like, and if Bill Self means he got after him a little bit, that means he MF'd him. Like, he crushed him. So they come out, and Miami right away just not taking care of the basketball, making poor decisions, taking shots early in the shot clock, threes, ill-advised. And I talked to McGusty afterwards, and he said that. He's like, listen, that's where we screwed up. We gave him the ball, and then they got out in transition, got their swagger back, and then McCormick had a huge and one that just got him going, and that was it. That was it for the most part. And then it was just like absolute rout and dominance in the second half. And Kansas showed again in the second half why I think they're the favorites to cut down the nets right now. And I think part of it, we'll talk about the matchup in the national semifinals. But remember last time they played Villanova in the national semifinals, I asked Bill Self about that the other day. I forgot they were there. I literally said, like, first time you were in the final, he was like, no, we were there in 2018. And then he looked at me, he's like, yeah, we really weren't there. We didn't show up.
They were there in spirit. They were there in
Exactly.
spirit. They weren't really there. Now, I think Kansas's defense along the perimeter really shined. And you look at Abaji, Brown, Wilson, like those guys.
Harris.
Oh, yeah, he was great.
He was the best one. Mm-hmm. They put him on McGusty, even though he's given away five inches. He did a great job on McGusty.
Yeah. They've just defensively, Kansas can really get after you. And the fact that Miami, who's not a high turnover team, was starting to give it up, says all you need to know. They struggled to get into anything. Pressure on the ball really shined today. And the fact that in the second half, Kansas could really get going out in transition. I think that's where they really started to shine. That's where McCormick got his and one that you referred to. This Kansas team can go. And I think that fifth foul on Wardenberg pretty much slammed it shut. And it was with 9.5 or 10 minutes. I can't remember the exact timestamp, but it was, I mean, it shut everything down because it limited their ability to pull people out. But it really didn't even come down to that. Their on the ball defense changed the game. And that's something that going into this game, Miami hasn't had a hard time really creating by themselves. Well, Kansas defensively, they could do that. And it was a clinic on the defensive end. And then the offense just follows suit because they get some easy looks.
Yeah, and I think they kind of broke the spirit a little bit of Miami. Once that lead got to like 12 and 15, Miami was like, okay, this run is over. And there's two things, Jeff, that really stood out to me about this performance. One, like T.O. mentioned, they gave up 50 points to a Miami team that had been playing really, really well. And two, Ochai Agbaji got it going. Right. They are going to need him long term. And Bill Self, we got this interview coming up with him in just a minute. He's gonna be asked about that. But real quick, Jeff, Ochai, how important is he to this group long term?
Important, but not like as a first team All-American and National Player of the Year candidate, not as important as you would think, because they've got a lot of dudes, right? We saw it tonight. Christian Brown can make it, like, he can be the guy if you need him to be. Now you got Remy Martin, who's a difference maker, because as Bill told me, like, listen, we haven't had a guy like that when shot clock's going down, all else fails, right? The play breaks down. You just give the ball to Remy and he's going to be able to make a play. Ochai is Ochai. We know that. Jalen Wilson was terrible today. Really, really bad today for the most part. So I think you've got right there. And Harris isn't a big offensive player, but he can get to the basket and finish high over the, off the glass. He does it, twice a game, and he can really, really guard. So I love the rotation here. And again, I don't think that you have to have a list Ochai in order for Kansas to win this whole thing. But as I asked Ocha, like, eventually you're going to break out. We know that one of these 2 games, he's going to break out. I don't think he broke out today. Like, he didn't force anything. He was very efficient, picked his spots, and really kind of the wealth was spread around. And I think that's the beauty of this Kansas team.
Yeah. Well, listen, go ahead, Theo.
No, I would argue that you do need Ochai Agbaji's game if you don't get David McCormick's A game. Like, I think that covered up some things for Ochai or some of the other guys that didn't play well today. McCormick was terrific. And is he going to be able to have that kind of game against Jermaine Samuels? Like, dude's a dog. It'll be interesting to see there. Sorry, Doster, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, we're going to throw to the Bill Self interview. T.O. does believe that he is more important than hearing from Bill Self, the man himself. But Jeff Goodman was able to catch up with Bill Self after Kansas's win in the Midwest Regional.
All right, Jeff Goodman here with Kansas coach Bill Self. First Final Four since 2018.
Yeah.
I know you didn't really show up in 2018. You're going to show up this time?
No, I mean, we played better the second half. Yeah. That's about all I can say about that game.
Yeah, Remy, I mean, listen, again, this was a team effort. I felt like everybody on the team was valuable today. But again, Remy's kind of been a difference maker. He gives you something that you haven't had all year.
Yeah, I don't think – I thought on Friday Remy was the best player in the game. I thought against Creighton Remy was the best player in the game. Today I didn't think Remy was the best player in the game, but he is a big part of it, and you know, he gets his 9 points, and his energy and everything helps key a lot of things. But the best players in the game today, were probably David McCormick and I don't know, Oach had a good game, but
bunch of good players.
Everyone played well, and I thought Juan's defense on Cameron to start the second half was huge for us.
2018, you got Villanova, and they got you pretty good. You get him again here without probably Justin Moore, one of their best players.
Yeah, that's sad. I had a chance to get to know him just a little bit during the USA trials for the team we coached a few years ago, but he's a stud, and I hate that for anybody. And Villanova, I said this earlier to the team, without question, the premier program in America the last 6 years or whatever it's been since, they beat us on a one possession game when they won their first national championship in the Elite Eight, and then they got us in the Final Four that propelled them to their second national championship. So, and I didn't get a dinner or a card or anything at all from Jay at all. So although those 2 games will not have anything to do with this one, we owe him. We owe him in the Wildcats one.
What does this mean for you and everything that you've gone through personally over the last few years?
I haven't. Everybody goes through stuff. I've never been one to think that my issues or things I go through are more than what other people deal with, because we're still coaching ball, and we're in a sport that has ups and downs, but still not real life in many ways. But we went through some real life this year when I lost my father, and so but everybody eventually goes through something like that as well. So it's been a very rewarding year at a time for me personally that I probably needed that. So it's been a fun year, and certainly I'm proud of these guys and how they've acted and how they've competed, and certainly how they propped me up.
Thanks, Bill.
That was Kansas head coach Bill Self, fresh off of reaching his 4th Final Four with the Kansas Jayhawks. One thing you guys did not talk about in that conversation, Jeff, was the impact that the FBI investigation into college basketball that's been going on for 5 years, the impact that has had on the Kansas Jayhawk program, their recruiting, the level of talent that they have in there. You are an opinionated man in general. You are quite opinionated when it comes to Kansas and it comes to that FBI investigation. I know, because we've had probably too many conversations about this. So how how impressive is it that Bill Self's been able to get Kansas and keep Kansas at this level despite everything else that's going on around that program?
Yeah, I mean, crazy impressive because, again, even before all of the investigation, they were having difficulty because Adidas had, I don't know, 20% of the top players, 80%. Well, back then it was probably 70% Nike, 20% Adidas, and maybe 10% Under Armour. And then after the Adidas deal, so they couldn't get Nike players for the most part, occasional ones. But after the Adidas deal, like you couldn't get anybody. All the good players, most of them were gone from Adidas at that point. So, yeah, I mean, they haven't recruited a high level. They've had to develop guys, and Ochai is the perfect example of a guy they've developed. I mean, he was rated like 350th coming out of high school. I asked Bill Self earlier this year. I don't know if you remember this, Rob, but outside after the Champions Classic when they played, we were talking about him, and I said, "Why'd you take him then?" And he was like, "Well, he was really a great kid, and he wanted to be here." And I'm like, "Huh? Like that's not why you take him." But Ochai's turned out to be a hell of a player, and honestly, you look at their team, and a lot of it is because of Bill Self. Like David McCormick is a good, solid big man, right? Like Christian Brown, he's a good player. He's a really good player, but like he doesn't jump off the page at you by any means. Harris is a good backup point guard, realistically. Remy Martin's been disappointing for 90. He's the player version of Hubert Davis, except he was actually hurt this year in terms of he's been, disappointing for the most part for 90% of the year. And he's been absolutely unbelievable when it matters most. So, yeah, I think Bill Self, and the other part, guys, is like, you wonder if Bill Self wins this whole thing, how emotional is it for him because of everything that he's gone through, right? Like he loses his father months ago. He's gone through all this FBI stuff. He's going to get hit, right? Multiple level ones. He's going to get hit. They're fighting it like hell. Kansas gives him the lifetime contract. They're sticking by him. But ultimately, he's going to get hit hard next year, and we just don't know how hard yet.
Mm-hmm. I think the point that you made about the development within the program and the identifying talent and getting guys better. How many guys on this team right now, this Kansas team, are going to end up playing a significant amount of time in the NBA? I imagine Christian Brown will probably make a roster somewhere, and same thing with David McCormick, and same thing with Jalen Wilson. But the only guy that is going to be like a legitimate NBA player for an extended period of time is probably going to be Ochai Agbaji, and that's a kid that nobody else really wanted, right? Like he was didn't he say he was going to like UMKC?
Oregon State was who he told me he was going to visit until Kansas offered at the last minute.
Yeah. So, I mean, Tio, the player development in this program is the reason why they are where they are right now.
Well, it's funny. We made a joke when we saw him at the Champions Classic. They said, "Oh, yeah, you could shoot it." I was like, well, I never got a call from Kansas. And then I went back and looked at the roster from Kansas in 2007, 8, and 9, like Sharon Collins, Cole Aldridge, Marcus Morris, Travis Relaford, Tyshawn Taylor, Markieff Morris, like a lot of really good players, dudes. And it just shows Coach Self's versatility. And guys, they are good players. They are good players. They are not the talent-wise. They are not the Kansas teams of old that he was getting at the beginning of his tenure there. That's just point blank, period. And it says a lot about his ability to coach. And like you said, Jeff, 350th was Agbaji. And you could see when he came on, he had a lot of tools. He had long arms. Like he snuck one. Let's be honest about that one. He snuck one. He knew it was going to take time, but he had a good shooting motion and broad shoulders, and you just thought that he could develop into something. He snuck one. That was a good player, but it's a big development piece. And to get at what he's got out of some of these guys, Mitch Lightfoot has been great this tournament. And like, is he this high level dude that Kansas usually gets? No. Is he very lovable? He absolutely awesome. Is. But he was
awesome. Great today, Tio. He was he and McCormick together were. I mean, there's a reason why McCormick was so good when he was in there. Yet, like when it mattered, who was in the game? Mitch Lightfoot, because you knew he could guard some. And even after Wardenberg fouled out, he still kept Lightfoot in there, which I was kind of surprised about, because you can exploit. We know that you can exploit Big Dave on the defensive end. If you've got a big that can stretch it.
Yeah, and
like
in Miami,
Big Dave better than Big Mac.
Small.
You like the nickname Big Dave better than Big Mac there, Jeff?
I like them both. Big Mac's better. Yeah, Big Mac's better. Definitely.
Sorry, Tio, go ahead.
No, you're good. But Mitch Lightfoot also like was 6 years or 7 years. He's another one of those old guys. Like, what isn't he trying to get into
almost as old as
something?
Hummel? Yeah, he's not quite at the Hummel stage of college longevity, but he's fighting it. He's
how long
close.
did Hummel go to? He was at 6 years or 7.
No, 8 years. 8 years. 8
So
years.
he's a doctor at this point.
No, he's really not. But I like to joke. I will forever claim that Robbie Hummel was there 8 years, even though I think it was only 5.
Oh, really? But I thought no, it probably better. Was 5. Okay,
yeah, well, it sounds way better at 8 because all the young kids, if I keep saying 8, they're going to believe that Robbie Hummel was there 8 years. He's the longest tenured college basketball player ever.
There's going to be an addendum.
There's Coleman Lands.
Yeah, there's going to be an addendum called the Hummel addendum when it comes to like 6 and 7 year players. No, but he just gets guys that continue to develop and just do the right things. And then he has 1 or 2 guys that are bucket getters. The rest of them, good players. But one thing about Self too, and this is just something small, like role definition with Bill Self, like, you know what you're there to do. Like he is, I would venture to guess one of the best in the country at that, or if not the best in the country.
Yeah, and I think the perfect example of that is Ochai Agbaji, learning that the role that he has to play as a superstar, sometimes the most unselfish thing that you can do as a player is to be selfish. We will hear from Ochai later on in this show.